Hey, how you doing? I am Adam Post, publisher of College of the Dead, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books. Been in the comic book game for a long time, worked with a lot of creative teams, and I want to talk to you about hiring experienced writers and artists versus hiring inexperienced creative people. There is a big difference to it, and there's a lot you should know, but I am going to go over the highlights of it quickly. This is the Secrets of the ComicsGate Network video. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Let me know in the comments below how your day is going, if you have experience with this, if you have questions about this. I know a lot about this. I've hired a lot of industry name people. I've hired Adam Hughes. I've hired Jim Shooter. I've hired, oh my God, Kelly Jones. I've hired a lot of people, and I've hired a lot of new people right out of the box and helped them get their careers going in a couple of cases. So I'm going to tell you all about it. So let's get into it. Look, the first thing is the question that people will ask me is like, well, should I hire an experienced writer? Should I hire an experienced editor or artist to do my work? Maybe I can get someone more cheaply if they're inexperienced, or this other person is a friend of mine, or this person, is recommended that they're good. They really love comics, but maybe they haven't worked on comics before. So here's my answer to that. No, you should not hire inexperienced people if you can possibly avoid it. Now, when I first went into publishing back in the early 1990s, I was a young guy, and one of the things I wanted to do was give people chances, and I gave a lot of people their first chances. In fact, it was kind of a rule with me is I'll bet I can get people that are more loyal if I give them their first chances. And the deal is, yeah, that is good. It's good to give people their first work. It's a nice thing to do. And you might find great talent that way if they've never worked professionally before, they've never even done comics before. It's all possible. But the reality is, the only reason it started to work out for me, even though we had some challenges with it, was I had a manager who was in house who'd worked under Will Eisner and was able to train people. Will Eisner is a famous comic book creator that is like a legend in comic books and taught a lot of classes, and he was great. So yeah, we were able to actually train people in a studio environment. We had a lot of new talent that popped up that way. They learned a lot. We had a great time. It was a really awesome time, the early 1990s. Actually, there's a video of my art studio for comics in the beginning of this channel. It's one of my first videos. So if you want to see what it looked like, you can check out a video of it. But yeah, when you're hiring people that are brand new to the work that they're doing, even the best of intentions, a lot can go wrong. So there are plenty of experienced people who've done work in independent comics before, even people that worked for the majors before. And when you hire someone experienced, number one, you know what level of work to expect. There's less surprises. So there's kind of a common understanding. So if someone did work on the Ninja Turtles or something for IDW, or they drew X-Men for Marvel, or whatever the case is, you can look at their existing samples and say like, okay, so you're going to do this for me. Is that right? And then, you're referring to something that exists. So you can say, yeah, okay, this is what I'm expecting. And then when you're asking for it, they know what you expect them to produce. Okay. The second thing is experienced creators really help you to plan your production. So when you're talking to an experienced creator who's drawn, at least 100 comic book pages, if not 1,000, that artist can tell you, I usually pencil, depending on the references and the complexity, I can pencil and ink a page a day. Or I can do with my other job, I can do it part-time at night, for example, and I can do probably 3 pages a week for you, but I'm not making any promises. But then you would follow up, for example, and say, well, okay, but let's say with promises, like if I wanted to count on it life or death, like how many pages a week could you do? Well, I could definitely do at least 2, but most weeks I'll get at least 2.5 or 3 done or whatever. Okay, fine. So then it's 2 pages a week. With somebody inexperienced, they don't know. They kind of haven't done it before enough, right? So you you can't plan production properly that way. So if you have an artist and you love them and they've not done comics before, okay, you love them and that's great, but you can't schedule that to be produced. It's gonna take as long as it's gonna take. Um, all right, moving on. Number three here, you're gonna know what your budget's gonna be. So here's what I mean. So this has happened. I've known a couple names. I could tell you some names you'd know, and it's happened to me before. Sometimes you hire talent, even experienced talent, and then something comes up in their life. Or sometimes someone tells you something comes up, but what happened was a much better paying job came along or something like that. Well, you've maybe been paying that creator as time has gone on, and maybe the quality isn't what you thought it would be. Maybe they lost interest in it, whatever it is. You might be paying for work that you can't publish because you're paying them, let's say, every week, and you're paying them a certain amount per page, whatever it's going to be. They've delivered the work, but now they didn't finish it. Sometimes you can reuse it. A lot of times in the creative business, you can't, whether it's penciling or inking or coloring or writing or something. Partially completed work is partially completed, and it's if it's not 100% done, it's not done, and you may have to throw it away. So you can't really plan your budget properly because it's too big of a variable to know if they're going to turn stuff around. Again, this doesn't mean not to give people a chance. It just means if you're new in publishing, especially, you can't afford to take a lot of chances as a big enough variable that you're doing this in the first place because you don't even have that much experience. So you're relying on other people's experience to get the project done. Again, really, experienced creators can tell you how long it's going to take for them to complete work. That is so important. So if it takes a writer a month to finish writing a 48-page graphic novel for you, or it takes 2 months for them to do it, or whatever, then you can plan the art and you can plan the rest of the lettering, and maybe you're also going to plan the coloring art for it. Other people are involved on this team, not just you, not just the writer, not just the artist. It affects everyone else. And you got to make sure you can keep your promises to all the creative people that are involved for time, for money. And then also you want to publish it and get it out when you plan to get it out. And you don't want it to take 2 years to do a simple or even a beautiful 48-page graphic novel or whatever your project's going to be. So again, experienced creators make it possible to manage. And don't feel either like you're going to get that nothing's going to go wrong just because you're working with people where everything they've done is something they've done before and they're experienced. Things still go wrong. So it just makes it a manageable process. Lastly, don't underpay creators. Now a lot of people ask me questions about rates. Rates is a big issue and it gets complicated. It depends on the work. It depends on the expertise of the person. It depends on are they part owner of the property. It gets complicated. But here is something simple. Don't underpay the creators. Don't try to get them to work cheap. And again, I'm not a multi-millionaire, billionaire over here where I'm telling you like, well, the sky's the limit, make everybody rich. No, just ask a creator directly what their rates were on other jobs. Just say, so what did you get when you were working at IDW? What did you get when you were working at this other company? What did you get when you worked for that other independent company? Should they tell you? Yeah, they should tell you because the thing is, look, they don't have to tell you, but you don't have to work with them either. Like try to find out that you're paying them a fair rate that's consistent. If somebody in ComicsGate refers a letterer to me or a colorist or whatever, I'm going to pay that person pretty consistent with what they've been paid by the other person. Because, for example, that's what they expect. You don't want to try to pay them less. If you can pay them a little more, you should pay them a little bit more just to help everybody out. But at least you have to pay them what they're expecting from the other person. So if all of a sudden somebody recommended a letterer to me and I paid them 5 times as much, which is not realistic, but whatever, twice as much or 3 times as much as the other person who referred me, then they're going to also feel like, oh, well, maybe that other person took advantage of them. Just keep the flow going, be consistent with what they've made in the past. Now, somebody may have had an experience where they got paid a lot of money to do work, and good for them, and they should be paid a lot of money. Everybody should make a lot of money, be paid a lot of money, but it may be outside your budget, and it's just not a good fit for you to work with that creator, move on. Let them find work that pays them really well for their specific style. Artists have different markets for their work, different rates that they can get, doing different things for different publishers or commissions. And don't try to take a square peg and fit it in a round hole. It's terrible to do that, because it makes it much harder to manage things. And you don't want to try to force anybody to do anything. Really look at work that people have done in the past and see that what you're trying to do is actually a good fit for them. Like in relationships and friendships and working with people and stuff. You want it to be a good and reasonable and mutually beneficial collaborative relationship. As far as royalties and things like that, I really don't want to get into it here. Try to be fair with people in all cases. Always go to things with that attitude. Don't underpay people. Pay them fairly, with at least consistent with what they've made before. Think about the money part as if it was you on the other side. If someone puts a lot of work into something, or they're working on something every week, they should be able to get paid every week, right? They should be able to get paid for what they're doing. Keep the money coming. Don't do this where you're hiring someone if you don't have the money to pay them. And don't assume that just because a project is really cool or looks great or people like it, that like, oh, well, we'll probably make enough money to pay them from the Indiegogo. You really want to be very careful that if you make a promise to a creative person, you keep it. They need that money to pay for things like rent and food. It's very, very serious to just make sure those people are taken care of. So be very conservative in what you promise and make sure you can always deliver it. I do like giving chances to people who are not experienced, or helping people who have some experience but not a lot of experience yet, enough that they can really show that they can keep their promises. Just if you're in a situation where you're going to hire somebody inexperienced, just be really careful that you can put a lot of extra time and energy and buffer into your time and your budget and all your expenses, and a lot of extra trouble to help manage them. And if you're someone who isn't experienced and you want to get work, understand, people take a big chance when they work with you. So really be 110% responsible with the commitment that somebody gave you and the chance that somebody gave you. But still, work for fees. Don't work for free. I will do another video on writers and artists splitting profits on crowdfunding projects, on my suggestions about that. It is something that's done. It's really not something for this. This is just really about, should I hire an experienced creator or an inexperienced creator? And my advice is always going to be, hire the experienced creator. And if you hire someone inexperienced, just understand it's going to be a lot more time and a lot more energy and a lot more risk potentially to really get the project to work properly. All right, make sure you're subscribed to this amazing, super sexy channel of mine. Click the bell for notifications. Make sure you give me comments below on any of your thoughts about working with experienced creative people versus inexperienced. I'd love to hear it. And I will see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.